In the heart of downtown Nashville sits the legacy of black music in America. The new National Museum of African American Music is now open for visitors. And as Laura Faber shows us, it tells the story of where the music you love today likely got its start.
Music has always drawn people to Tennessee. From the neon-lit honky-tonks in Nashville, the gospel, blues, and jazz in Memphis, to bluegrass in the hills of East Tennessee. But now, with the cut of a ribbon in January 2021, Tennessee is officially home to the world's first and only museum devoted to African American music, and it sits at 5th and Broadway in Nashville.
This is an idea whose arrival is long overdue. You know, I think that a lot of musicians and historians have recognized that African American music is fundamental to American identity, but it's taken 20 years to bring it to fruition.
Curator Dr. Stephen Lewis says the museum celebrates the role Black Americans played in shaping American music, and the flow of the physical layout of the museum is significant.
The river concept comes from the Langston Hughes poem, The Negro Speaks of Rivers, you know. And so what we've done is kind of organize the museum around this central corridor, which, like you said, we call the Rivers of Rhythm corridor, as a way of, number one, emphasizing the fluidity and the kind of hybridity of different musical traditions, and also showing that all these different styles of music are kind of traditions that flow out of a common core. We have our various galleries that kind of branch off. We have the Wade in the Water Gallery, which tells the story of African American religious music, Crossroads Gallery, which tells the story of the blues, Love Supreme Gallery, telling the story of jazz, the One Nation Under a Groove Gallery, which tells the story of rhythm and blues, and then finally we have The Message, which tells the story of hip hop.
We tell a chronological, historical story of how American music developed and evolved. So it's not a Hall of Fame, it's not focused on a particular artist. It really kind of walks us through American history and sort of what has been that soundtrack of the development of our country.
President and CEO Henry Hicks III believes the museum embraces the full definition of Music City and says Nashville is the perfect place for it.
We're Music City for a reason. I think, the state's tourism slogan is, in fact, the soundtrack of America's made in Tennessee. And that is actually somewhat historically accurate. If you think about the rich tradition of the blues over in the western part of the state, and you think about the development and evolution of country music and even bluegrass music in the eastern part of the state, and then certainly gospel, religious music, R&B, and soul in the middle part of the state here where we are in Nashville, you realize that that stuff was not an accident. It was because of that great migration that this culture became so rich with music in this particular state. And then evidence of that is the Fisk Jubilee Singers, who certainly helped to bail out Fisk University in its early years. They also were the first singing group in this country to ever go on world tour, regardless of genre, regardless of race.
Within these 56,000 square feet, it does what no other museum does. Displays how Black artists have fundamentally shaped American music over the past 400 years. For example, young British musicians in the 60s were listening to Muddy Waters, Chuck Berry, and Motown. And this banjo from West Africa influenced instruments used in country music. Dr. Lewis, so this is one of your favorite exhibits, and why?
Exactly. So this is a replica of a late 18th century banjo. It's made out of a gourd, and you see the head is made out of goat skin, and we have kind of a wood plank here that serves as the neck. The reason why I like this banjo and this whole display case is that it really illustrates the way the banjo is kind of descended from these earlier instruments that come out of West and Central Africa, right?
There are hundreds of other artifacts, like a gown worn by Whitney Houston, one of Ella Fitzgerald's Grammy Awards, B.B. King's Lucille, and a robe and wig from George Clinton. They all help represent 50 genres and styles of music.
And so we're really honored to have this here.
But it's the interactivity of the museum that allows you to dive into the music. From a larger-than-life Prince Purple Rain performance, singing with Bobby Jones and his gospel choir, to laying down a hip-hop track in a studio, you can actually take home all of it and more. For instance, everyone who visits the museum gets this bracelet, which allows them to create their own personal playlist of any of the songs that they hear while visiting. For instance, I've chosen Sly and the Family Stone. I want to save those 3 songs, and I do it by swiping the bracelet, and then I download it all later once I'm at home.
My first hope is that it brings people together. So much of the narrative that we see is that we're different. And what I hope this story tells is that we're not that different. We all love music, and I hope that people come away seeing that and willing to hug somebody, talk to somebody that maybe they wouldn't have been before they came into this museum.
And now the legacy of the music we love is preserved forever in the heart of Music City.